This is the video for the Try It section of Lesson 8, Making Decisions with VBA. In this lesson, you write a macro that contains a couple of different decision-making components. One of them will be a message box to ask the user a question, and the message box will either be answered with the user clicking yes or no. And after that, if the user clicks yes, they will be presented with an input box to enter what they believe to be the password to unprotect a worksheet. VBA will look at that entry and evaluate whether or not it's correct or whether it's the incorrect password and take the appropriate action and let the user know what's happening along the way. So to get started, a little bit of housekeeping first before writing the macro. Click on the Review tab of your ribbon and protect your worksheet here. Click the Protect Sheet icon and enter in lowercase HELLO. That's the word hello, all lowercase letters. When you do that, Excel will ask you to re-enter that same password and click OK, and now the worksheet is protected. After protecting the worksheet, go to the Visual Basic Editor. I'm going to press the Alt F11 keys here to do that. And you'll need to insert a module because this is the first macro of your workbook. Click Insert, Module, and enter the name of your macro, which here I'll call Password Test. Spelling password correctly. The first order of business is, once the macro is triggered, to ask the user whether or not they want to unprotect the worksheet. There are a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to open a select case structure with the message box that asks the question, do you want to unprotect the worksheet? With yes and no buttons on the message box, and a VBA question icon that'll be on the message box also. It's a nice little touch. Stick that on there. And I generally do use the title. These are always optional, the title to a message box and an input box, but I like to use them. It adds a little bit of information that the user can know what's going on, and I want them to please confirm that they do want to unprotect the worksheet. And there are two possible outcomes to this. One will be the case that they clicked the no button, and if that is the case, I'm going to produce a message box for them that says no problem, the sheet will not be unprotected, and in the title bar of that message box I enter in this piece of info that they clicked no. Sometimes people click a button that they think is another button that they click, and I like to tell them that the button that they clicked is whatever it was, in this case no. And you can type in the words exit sub, because if they don't want to unprotect the sheet, that ends the macro right then and there. No harm, no foul, and everybody moves on. Now, the other case is that they will answer yes to the question that was asked on the message box. And in that case, there will be an input box you'll want to produce for the user for them to enter the password to unprotect the worksheet. When you're dealing with an input box, you're going to be dealing with a string, and you'll need to declare a string type variable. So a simple one to declare, let's call it dim my password as string, and set my password as an input box that will instruct the user to please enter the case sensitive password. And in the title bar, I let them know that a password is required to unprotect this worksheet. When the user is confronted with an input box, there are going to be three possible outcomes to that. One of them will be if they click OK without entering anything into the input box, or they click the cancel button. In either of those cases, VBA will regard the entry of an input box as being a null string, which is represented by a pair of double quotes with nothing in between them, and that to VBA means nothing. If nothing was entered into the input box, then we'll exit the macro as well. Now, quick note about this. This is my preference of having the exit subline on the same line as the if keyword. If there is only one possible outcome, and you could have written it like this in 3 separate lines, that's still going to have the same effect, but I tend to shorten the code a little bit where possible, and if there's only one possible outcome with an if statement, then I keep it all on one line. It's a personal preference either way you want to do it. It's up to you. The next possible outcome is if the password that they entered is not correct, and in that case you would write that as if my password, that's the variable, does not equal hello, which you know to be the password because that is what you entered when you protected the sheet a little bit back at the beginning of this lesson. Then you'll want to have a message box in there that informs the user that they entered in the incorrect password. Now, a user-friendly way to do that is to say something like sorry, enclosed in double quotes, and concatenate that with the my password variable to tell them what it was that they entered into the input box. That's a nice little touch. They will know that what they entered is not correct. Sometimes they think they might have entered the word hello and they entered some other word, and this will confirm for them what they actually did enter, and that will be a way for them to say, okay, I made a mistake, I'm going to try again. The other possible outcome is that they answered the input box correctly by entering in the right password, and I also include a message box for that thanking them, and to please click OK to unprotect the worksheet with an information icon on the message box and telling them, hey, you entered the correct password. Now the only other piece of business is to actually tell VBA to unprotect the worksheet. And to do so with the password hello. You enter in your end if statement because you started with this if structure here. This has nothing to do with up here where you exited the sub on one single line. The end if here relates to the if structure here. And because you started way up here with the select case statement, you have to end that with the end select statement. And that is your macro, and you're ready to test it. I'm going to press the Alt Q keys on the keyboard to go back to the worksheet, which is still protected. Clicking on the Developer tab and clicking the Macros icon, or pressing Alt F8 in any version of Excel will show the macro dialog box, and there is your password test macro that if you click Run will produce this message box that you first ask the user, do you want to unprotect the worksheet? And if the user clicks no, which I'm going to do here, that will produce this message box that informs the user, hey, you clicked no, no problem, the sheet will not be unprotected, and the only option they've got is to click OK, and that ends the macro right then and there. The worksheet is still protected. If the user were to click yes to the question of unprotecting the worksheet, there is the input box that now if they click OK or cancel without entering anything, the macro ends right then and there, and there is nothing else to happen because they've entered nothing to unprotect the worksheet. If they enter some other value, and I'm going to enter in the name Tom, which we know is not the correct password, if you click OK in that case, the message box will appear as you have written it, that Tom is not the correct password, and that they've entered in an incorrect one, and OK is the only option that they've got. They can go back, rerun the macro, answer yes to the question of unprotecting the worksheet, enter the word hello in lowercase letters there, click OK, and the friendly message box comes up to say, thank you, you have entered the correct password, just click OK. Nice way to inform them that they have successfully traversed this journey of unprotecting the worksheet. The worksheet is now unprotected, and you have completed your macro.